The European Investment Bank is one of the largest infrastructure investors in Europe, and I'm particularly pleased now that just coming from his panel session here at the FTTH conference in Berlin is Harald Gruber. Harald is head of digital investment for the EIB, and he's come to expound a little bit more on some of the topics that were covered in your panel session. Quite a lot of big topics talked about. From a sort of macro perspective, what were some of the things you particularly picked out that are affecting the world that we're in?
Yes, I mean, it was a very interesting section. It was very lively also. There were also discussion with the audience. I mean, one of the big items or challenges, what was the name of the session, is clearly how do now the changes in the financial markets, especially the rise in the interest rate, affect the sector. Clearly, the sector was spoiled in the past because in a zero interest rate environment, which one has to recognize is quite abnormal, basically there was a flurry of investments which were not fully thought through. And once reality set in with positive interest rates, clearly those investments which were not clearly thought through and which were not some sort of providing a perspective of return to investors, they were challenged and they were then put into question, and ultimately they were not receiving the financing because simply they were not able to deliver the payments of the raised interest rates. So what you could observe is that the sector, there's some dropout of companies, or there is a reshuffling, consolidation is going on to a large extent also. And I mean, I believe that after all, this is also a good disciplinary device, because otherwise we would invest in infrastructure which is not viable in the long term. So I think this is a disciplinary device which was which somehow was necessary, and of course now we have to pick up the challenge and try to make the best out of it, and identifying those business plans that work. There are plenty of business plans that do work, but only that they need time to pay back. This is long-term infrastructure, and therefore you do not have a very quick return. You can have a long-term return, comfortable return, but it needs to be well designed, well invested, and well managed, and so it gives a long-term return. But this is a challenge.
And are those the challenges that the EIB is most interested in, or where do you particularly look for?
Yes, I mean, the EIB is by its nature is a long-term infrastructure bank. So basically, very or almost none of the financial investors is able to look at so long term. So they are not investing for the long term. So the EIB is specialized for financing projects that have a return in the longer term. And this is where basically now with these raised interest rates, this is now again asked for in the market. And there the EIB has a big advantage because it can provide loans with very long terms.
How long are we talking in comparison to other forms of financing?
Consider that fiber infrastructure, fiber buried in the ground, has an economically useful lifetime of 20 to 30 years. So if you do an investment of that kind, you normally would then look, especially if they are sizable as for thing, at terms which are in excess at least of 10 years. But financial markets typically struggle to go beyond 7 years, 8 years, which is already long for them. We can go in for 20 years or so on those investments. So therefore, we do quite a lot of working with other financial actors which have those short-term things. So we are co-financing the investment. So we are providing a comfortable cushion for the long term, and we get on board financial investors which have a longer, shorter term view. So there's there's a very good cooperation among us as investors and additional investors. The EIB never does invest alone in a project or tries to avoid where the EIB would be the only provider of long-term financing. So we would like to have always other possibly private participants on board in the financing of projects.
And that must give them some reassurance and some trust that a body like yourself is then involved that can help bring in and open up doors to other financing.
Yeah, we have a notable what they call a catalytic effect. So once the EIB is comfortable with a project, it attracts other investors and it improves the terms at which the promoter can finance itself. So it is a virtuous cycle.
Okay, really interesting. So that then helps think about how that opens up that longer investment term across the whole of Europe. How do people get involved? How do you typically end up getting involved in a project? Do people come to you? Do you look for projects?
Basically, it's a little bit of everything. So basically, we are known to our customers. We are 60 years of activity, so we are known to many of the actors in the field. So typically, we do have our standard customers which come back with projects. Then we are known in the market simply because people talk. And then, if such a promoter has a project, they provide us with the project. We say, okay, we look at it, and then we come back to you to see whether this is interesting for us. Because we are not a typical commercial bank, which is just financing for the sake of making business. Our projects must also fulfill political criteria. So, in the sense, clearly, with digital infrastructure, it is not that problematic because that's clearly one of the policy aims of the European Union. So normally, digital infrastructure, we do not have big questions about why the bank should support it. That's clearly in the realm of European policies. But nevertheless, we look whether the project is sustainable in the sense that it is economically, financially, and technically viable. Because if it's not, we would simply say, sorry, go back to the drawing board, redesign the project, otherwise we cannot support it.
Yes. So the EIB is absolutely crucial to the future of the European fibre project. And your message to the conference and anybody else who's here is don't forget we're here.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we are known to, especially to this community, fibre to the home, we are known and we simply convey them this message that we are here to listen to your projects. We are embracing them. And for instance, there were the prize winner, Open Fiber, is one of our customers. So we are typically in the thing also going also for excellence. So in that sense, we are supporting projects which are well designed and good, and normally they perform.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much. It's a really interesting and important topic for the whole of this conference, and it sort of underpins everything that people are talking about. So it's really nice to get a little bit more explanation from yourself. Thank you for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.